So this is our third chat, and the aim then is then to have all those different perspectives put into a table or so that I can share with everyone eventually. So just before we get started with Coffee Chats with Jess, can everyone hear me clearly? Even if you just put a thumbs up or anything, Louise, if you can just be my check, if we can just hear everything's clear. I have started recording the meeting. So thank you so much for joining Coffee Chats with Jess, and I will be sharing my screen and just take us on a little introduction, and then we will kick it off with our first speaker, Louise. So can everybody see that? Thumbs up if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Thank you so much. I'm just going to do a quick change there. All right. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining. This week, we'll be focusing on mindfulness from different perspectives. Before we start with the inspirational speakers that we have today, I just wanted to give you a brief little overview about the event and why I've started these events. So the first thing is the aim is to provide people with insight into themselves and their interactions with others to better adapt and overcome challenging or unknown situations, kind of fitting for our current situation at the moment. This in turn allows us to be free from our own irrational or negative view or perception of ourselves. As human beings, we have to evolve, expand into better versions of ourselves. So it's continuously evolving within this journey. The biggest goal is to help individuals become more mindful of their actions and reactions in group settings, to practice mindfulness on a daily basis or as much as possible, bring individuals back to that present moment, of which I've recently learned that mindfulness doesn't always have to be in the present moment, if that makes sense, which we'll go through eventually. Make individuals and organizations aware that mindfulness is a real thing and that can be practiced in the workplace a lot more. So for those of you who have been joining these sessions, throughout the whole journey of Coffee Chats with Jess, you would know that we've gone a bit deeper into mindfulness. And now today's talk is a little bit more of understanding the practicalities of mindfulness and how it plays out in the workplace, for example. And Louise and Jay would be sharing that with us. So why mindfulness? The more you do it, the more it becomes clear. It lightens the mind and the spirit. My whole inspiration is a gentleman by the name of Osho, where he describes mindfulness as having perfect awareness. Being still and mindful of my thoughts, feelings, and behaviors has given me a whole different view of life. I've been able to stop myself in group settings and being mindful of my actions and people's reactions to me. And that's just built my rapport with people a lot deeper, and a lot more genuine relationships were built from that. I genuinely believe that this is simple, but yet so challenging for organizations to implement, as organizations want a quick fix, like a plaster that they put, and they call it mindfulness, or they call it, training, or they call it, engagement surveys, or etc. But this can be something that's a way of organizations' life. And that's why I've got the two inspirational speakers. So it's like having perfect awareness. So firstly, welcome to everyone on the chat, and welcome to the speakers. I've welcomed everybody. Don't be afraid to put anything into the chats if you have any questions as we go along. At the end of the session, we will have about 20 minutes or so that if you do have any questions for the speakers that you'd like to ask, you're more than welcome to ask. So I'm excited to have such a trending, inspirational, innovative human being to have a coffee chat with me today. We're going to start off with Louise. I'm going to give a quick introduction about who is Louise and why I was inspired to have Louise on the show. So Louise is a life coach who specializes in mindfulness. She's the owner and founder of Think Mindful. That keyword was Think Mindful that got me intrigued by her profile, where the motto is everything starts with you. The belief being that it all begins with a greater awareness and self-awareness. This is where the power lies. Think Mindful is about introducing mindfulness tools and techniques to help harness this power. Louise was inspired to create Think Mindful when she started to notice a mounting lack of awareness in the world, which I totally agree. Louise, I've also picked that up of recent. Conflict is often caused by misunderstandings, overreacting, and failing to observe. This means this can make people unaware of how their own thoughts, actions, and behaviors are ruling situations. The need to listen, not with the intent to understand, but rather the intent to react, is dominant. Louise's passion for coaching and teaching awareness training through mindfulness tools and techniques and helps to address this worldwide issue. So without any further delays, Louise, I would like to kick off the session with asking you my first question, which is, how do you define mindfulness at work?
Thank you very much, Jess. I just want to say thank you for that amazing introduction and for having me on the show as well. It is an honour to be invited on something like this, and it is so important to spread awareness and exactly what you said in the introduction, but the awareness of mindfulness in general, but especially in workplaces where it is sorely lacking. Yeah. But yes, how would I define mindfulness at work? I think really, to simply put it, is actually the definition of mindfulness itself. So basically, obviously, mindfulness is an act of paying attention on purpose, in a certain way, in a non-judgmental way. And that's what we really need to do in the workplace. Yeah. Because obviously with mindfulness, it helps us to be thoughtful, it helps us to be insightful, perceptive, take that observer stance. Yeah. And that, of course, helps us to respond to challenges. And also, again, what you just said in my introduction actually is helps us to respond and not react, which is that knee-jerk reaction, isn't it? In a lot of toxic workplaces, it's all about reacting to each other, and it's not great. And that is the reason why I started and founded Think Mindful, is because it's that flow from thinking, acting, and being mindful. So look at how we're communicating with others. For example, I was chatting with a colleague last week. For me, I stopped everything that I was doing at the time to talk to my colleague, to engage and to fully listen. And again, going back to what you've already said in the introduction, but listen to understand. And again, that's where all of the misunderstandings and conflict in the workplace can come from, because we're not having that time to stop and interact. Yes, all workplaces are very busy and it's all go, but we have to be the mindfulness advocates at work, and we need to be the leaders of this and switch on when we go to work. And anybody can do this. It doesn't have to be, head of the table and working down, as we all know that doesn't always happen with a lot of things that should happen.
I was just going to say, it doesn't happen with a lot of things. It needs to go down, up.
Yeah, exactly. So anybody can do this, which I know what you're talking about a bit later on is another reason why I'll be creating a book for this as well.
Oh, so awesome.
Lots of people can be a mindful advocate at work. That's what it's all about. And that is for me the definition of mindfulness at work. It's being aware of ourselves, of the environment, of the people in that environment, and just being aware. That is that's the two things.
Switching on.
Yeah. So mindfulness and awareness. This is it. So. Yeah,
100%. I like what you said with regards to don't listen. You said that don't listen to respond. Listen to respond.
Listen to understand rather than
than to respond or react. Funny enough, I'm just going to share a story. I usually, when you get into, I like to call them debates. I don't like to call them arguments with my husband. You get into a debate about a certain topic or something. I always tell him, don't listen to react, listen to understand. And that's because you're mindful of what I am saying, not so that you can just get on top of that fight. And this is a real example that happens, and this can happen in the workplace. You would typically have, perhaps, and I'm just speaking, from my experience, you would typically have a manager that doesn't necessarily give that person that time to they're not mindful of what that person is saying. They're just listening so they can get a quick fix. If we had to all just, I don't know if it's take a pause, because businesses go so fast. If we all just had to take a second to listen to understand, as opposed to that reaction. I can totally relate. That's a real example. That's a real thing that I've experienced in the workplace and in my personal life. So technically mindfulness can then be applied to personal and workplace. It's like it's a way of life, I guess. Eh?
Yeah, and I think it's important. It's actually really important what you've just said. Then something else I was meaning to say.
Yeah.
It isn't just about, of course, other people. It's about yourself. So you being mindful of yourself at work. You know, checking in with yourself. And this is why it's also really, really heavily linked to mental health. You know, you need to keep checking in with yourself. That's being mindful about yourself. And that's really, really important. So yeah, and as you say, in relation to relationships as well, it's not just the workplace, it's being mindful in all settings and wherever we are and whatever we're doing, definitely.
100%. So that leads me to my next question of, because I was curious to understand, what does it mean to be a mindfulness coach? Is there some sort of formal training for the people that are listening, for myself, if I ever want to go into something like this? Just a little bit of insight on that, if you don't mind sharing that with us.
No, of course not. Yeah, it certainly wasn't expected that this would be my journey, but it has been a beautiful journey. So I can't really say I've got any doubts or any regrets, because I do believe everything happens for a reason. And in one form or another, have always been a trainer or a coach, or through a lot of my other jobs. But for me, as you quite rightly pointed out, I'm a life coach, but I specialize in mindfulness, and that was my choice. So for me, and just so you can understand where I come from and how I work, very much when I'm working with somebody, I would ask, so what are you as a person are struggling with? How are you feeling generally on a day-to-day basis? And really get an overview of that person, how things are going for them on a daily basis, and getting to the root of any feelings.
Awesome.
So say, for example, if they were feeling quite stressed, you would target, that person, you would target stress management as a program to work with them. But it can't just end there. You need to find out, why are they stressed? What is causing that?
I like what you say, with the root, finding the root. And Clara, the lady who spoke last week, actually mentioned that is a lot of times in organizations, we take that plaster effect of putting a plaster and calling it mindfulness. And you're stressed, quickly go to the yoga mat, do whatever, and then come back. And we're not creating a sustainable way of doing things. And what you're saying is 100% spot on, in the sense of finding that root.
For sure.
So I can totally relate. It's a trend that I've picked up in these chats.
Definitely. And I think, you have to find out what that core root is, and place mindfulness at the heart of it, because somebody can give you 10 different, issues that they've got with, feelings that they're going through, of frustration, of stress. But you need to break down, what is that? I was working with somebody not too long ago, and we got down to it, and it was basically she didn't feel understood. She felt nobody understood her. So it's like, okay, so who isn't understanding you? Is it just one person? Is it a group of people? Where is this that they're not understanding you? So not only are you working with, stress management, you're also targeting communication and building self-awareness on those. So it is very much getting to, as you say, to the root of the cause. But in relation to training, there is a lot, and I mean a lot, of coaches that you can train with, and teachers you can train with to become a mindful coach. So
would you be able to share that with us at some point? Then I can maybe put that on when I do post. I can share some resources for people to go have a look at.
And it's basically just making sure that the course that you do is accredited, which is important. So, and the reason why that is important, because when you do a course with accredited hours, you can be part of different governing bodies. regulate the industry.
Yes.
And obviously go through things like you're adhering to the code of ethics and
Okay, so there's some sort of
things
accredited
like that.
courses for this.
So you can, but you have to do over a certain amount of hours of training to be with these people. But it, you know, it is worth doing, because you can then be part of something that is building on good code of ethics and you know, making the industry stronger.
100%. Thank you so much for sharing. This was just more of a personal question. Well, all of these are personal questions. They're all the questions I came up with. Yeah, I came up with these questions. You're just feeding my curiosity, really. So I wanted to find out, what would you say is one reward and one challenge of being an independent mindful coach? You can relate it to organizations, I think, because there's probably a list of challenges, but is there a reward and a challenge that you can pinpoint for me with this regard?
Well, I mean, if you were looking at individuals, hands down a reward is getting feedback from somebody who you've helped get unstuck from their life and made that big change in their life. Not too long ago, actually, I'd put a post out on LinkedIn with a mindfulness assessment, and I was not prepared for the amount of people that had helped. A lot of students, actually, which was quite interesting, who messaged me, and a lot of people privately said, oh, this is brilliant, this has really helped us. And you forget, you know, a lot of the tools and techniques which I use personally one-to-one with my clients. I hate using that word, clients. I need to come up with a better word. Do you know what that is now? I'll let you know. It sounds so formal. I don't like
know, clients.
Tired. Yeah, it's old. We need a new word. So yeah, I think it's finding, you know, that reward is helping people, and that is why coaches do what they do. I mean, I can obviously just speak for me personally, but I do know a few other coaches, and it is
that. Yeah,
and I think since I was a kid, that's something, it sounds really corny, but even as a teenager, I've always wanted to help people. That's
me.
You know what I mean? So yeah, and that's why coaches do what they do. Yeah. I'm sure Jay would say exactly the same thing. In relation to challenge, actually this has to be the stigma surrounding working with coaches, which is still very much there. I think people still see it as not a proper profession, which, you know, if people do see it like that, they do, and I'm sorry that they do see it that way. Yeah. Because a lot of coaches can help a lot of people and change a lot of lives, but still some people see it as, oh, it's a bit of a money-making scheme. I have heard of that before.
I've heard that too.
And I think there's still a lot of stigma to break down around that, to be honest. However, there's a lot of great coaches coming through, and a lot of good press, I would say, around that. So long may that continue, so people can reach out and get that help. But on a flip side, I think definitely from a coach's perspective, is just trying to be aware of being, I hate using this word, but more affordable, and so you can reach out to as many people as you can. So whether that be offering free, you know, courses or whatever, just to try and get that reach, you know, as far out.
Create that awareness for yourself. Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. And wouldn't you say another way to break that coaching stigma down is also maybe doing accredited coaching? You know, people take you a little bit, wouldn't say more serious, but if you've got some sort of accreditation or something behind your name, they tend to...
I think a lot of people check up on people as well. So,
I do.
Yeah, exactly. So if you've got an accredited course, basically you have a number and you...
it's like your practice number or some sort.
Exactly. And it'll show you who you've trained with, basically. Okay. Just lets the other person know, oh, okay, I have done.
Oh, yeah. That's a good... it's not pretend. Awesome. The one thing that I've been dying to ask you, and I think I mentioned this in our chats leading up to this, I really think I should have recorded the chats leading up to this, to be honest, now that I think of it, because a lot of richness came from that. So the other question I had for you is mindful coloring. What is that? Is it a thing? Tell me about it. Because I do mindful eating.
And there's mindful eating. Yes, I've done a little bit on that too.
I don't know if I do it properly, but like I'm a food lover, so I don't know if I call it mindful eating.
When you eat. That's mindfulness, but being in the zone when you eat, that's definitely.
Yeah. Awesome. So what is this? What is mindful coloring?
Mindful colouring, yeah, it's something that's been around for a very, very long time and comes back now and again with massive surges, doesn't it really? It's like plastered everywhere and there's books everywhere and saying, you know, mindful colouring, do this.
Yeah.
It is a very good mindfulness tool, but I don't think people 100% understand what it is. But I do have, for anybody that is interested, on my website, where you can download a workbook that includes everything on with an introduction and some geometric patterns that you can.
Oh, awesome.
But basically, it's very, very easy, but you do need, obviously, your geometric patterns or whatever it is if you want to treat yourself to a new adult colouring book, which still people cringe at when you say that, but they do exist. They are very pretty. You can get some really cool ones now.
Yeah, with mandalas and, you know, mandalas.
Yes, and I've got a few of those on my free one. And there's a lot of websites now that you don't even have to pay for that. I can't remember the website off the top of my head, but I'll let you know what that is so you can pass that on to the people. But yeah, you just need your patterns, your colouring pencils, and a quiet place. That's pretty much it. But you need to go into it. I would always recommend going into it with a notepad and pen, which sounds a little bit odd, just on the side. Put it on side just so it doesn't distract you. But basically what you're doing is you're just focusing on what you're doing, which is colouring this particular pattern. Yeah. And just focus on a section of it and, you know, work out what colour you want it to be. And it is just stopping your mind from wondering. It is basically just trying to focus on this one thing. And what a great way of doing that is actually just tuning into how heavy the pencil feels in your hand. So when you feel like you're you know, thinking about doing the dishes or you haven't done the washing yet, the world might end because you haven't done those things. So you just bring yourself back and just go, actually, no, I'm doing this. And it does take some time, it does take some practice, but it can be really quite interesting because at the end, when you've finished, you can look at the colours that you've used and make a note of the colours that you've used. Yeah. And have a look to see what those colours represent, because that can actually give you insight in what your state of mind and your state of being was at that time. And that will obviously be different every time you do it as well. But it is proved to improve your focus, your attention, your sleep. So many, obviously being in the present, because you're actually, you know, physically doing on, you know, that particular activity at the time. It reduces stress, anxiety, and any negative thought patterns. It can help combat that. Why? Because it actually targets the fear center of our brain. So it does help you to relax. Which is why I do it personally on an evening, because it helps me to totally switch off. But it can obviously be done at any time of day. So and it just helps you, I think, especially at the minute, because we're all using a lot of technology and all constantly being plugged in. So doing certain mindfulness tools and techniques is good to pull you away from that. And just give yourself that kind of mental break, which I always think is a good idea.
Awesome. So I don't know if you've read the book, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari.
No, but I know of it and it is on my list.
Yes. So so what I thought immediately when you said sitting there in that present moment and focusing on that one object, I actually got inspired by that book. He speaks about looking into a rose and just looking into that rose for about, you try for 10 minutes, but that's you know,
a long time. Yeah.
10 minutes is a long time in this.
2 minutes, try a minute.
So I did it for like 2 minutes without fail. You know, when I say without fail, I mean without taking my mind anywhere, and you just observe the patterns on the rows, and you see every little detail. So I'm going to try that mindful coloring. I like that.
Yeah, and just to let you know, I've got a meditation coming up which is very similar to that, and it's candle gazing, so it's a similar sort of.
Oh, I've heard of that.
So yeah, I would definitely recommend that as well. Okay,
awesome. Thank you for sharing. And then last but not least is, you mentioned you're busy writing a book. How's that going? Where are you in the process? What inspired you?
That's a very good question. Well, at the moment, I haven't really done very much. And I'm about a quarter of the way in, but I can't even tell you the title of it yet, because a good friend of mine who also writes, or is a writer, she was like, do not start, spending weeks and weeks thinking of a title. It'll just totally distract.
That's good advice.
Write the content. That is the end stuff. Do not get sucked in.
Awesome.
Be my first book. So yeah, I'm just focusing on the content at the minute.
Awesome.
I would like it out and finished probably kind of March, April next year, but obviously current circumstances, we'll have to see how that goes, because I haven't even talked to publishers yet, or
so it's very early stages.
There's a lot.
Awesome.
But it's basically, in a nutshell, it takes you through from part 1, part 2 to part 3. Part 1 is looking at yourself and building self-awareness. So it is very things that you will do. Again, I don't want to give too much away at the moment. Part 2 is tools and techniques to achieve more balanced relationships in the workplace. So some of the topics are going to be being present, being open, and boundary setting. So also important.
That's very important.
Part 3 is going to be how to bring mindfulness into the workplace by leading by example.
Awesome. That sounds so exciting.
Yes, I'm very excited, but I really need to get back to writing it. But there's a lot of things going on right now getting in the way.
I guess if you force it, you won't get that organic.
No, and I don't want to do that.
So don't force it. Just trust the process.
Yes. Trust the process. I'm going to write that on a post-it note.
And remember me.
Yeah. Jess.
I did not coin that. I'm just awesome. Louise, from my side, thank you so much for firstly accepting this invitation to be part of the Coffee Chats with Jess, and for imparting such valuable insights and knowledge into mindfulness. We all can define mindfulness, so from different perspectives. It's very broad and it can get lost in its definition per se, but having coffee chats with various individuals with different perspectives of mindfulness is just going to I think it's going to create more clarity for me personally, because I can then take these themes and build my own, sound definition, or conceptualize it in my own brain, because I'm always about conceptualizing stuff, if I want to call it, making sense of. So yeah, thank you so much. I do believe you have to run. So from my side, thank you so much. If anybody does have questions for you, or after we've posted the video, etc., I'll lead them to your LinkedIn page. And then thank you so much, and I appreciate you being part of my journey, and just giving me your time. Really.
Thank you. You are so lovely. You are so lovely. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm just so sorry I'm not able to stay and listen to Jay, which I was really quite excited to listen to as well, but I have to run now.
Life.
But again, thank you so much. It's again been an absolute pleasure, and I will certainly be tuning into more coffee chats with Jess. Obviously, maybe it's not as a participator, but more as a watcher. But thanks very much, guys.
Awesome.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much, Louise. Have a lovely evening.
Thanks. Take care, guys. Bye.